Everyone, welcome back to a new episode of the SDR Game podcast. And today we are going to do a different episode if we compare to the other episodes, because I've tried, right now I'm focusing a lot on interviews, but also I've tried solo episodes and I'm going to do more, obviously. And today it's a solo episode, but more focused on Q&As. So I have some notes. I'm going to answer some questions that I got from people in the past few weeks about prospecting, about being a founding SDR, for example, or the best resource to start as an SDR. So I'm going to answer those questions today. I'm going to talk about different topics, obviously. So if you enjoyed this episode, let me know. You can, obviously, if you're on YouTube, comment the video and give your feedback on the video or ask any questions, because I'm thinking about doing this format a few times in the coming next weeks. I'm thinking more about a monthly one to start, and if I'm getting more and more questions, I think I will do more like a weekly thing. And if it's a format that you love, why not doing like a live version of it? Obviously, where you can join, you can ask your questions. Also, if you can join, I can create a form so you can send your question. So really wanted to do this format for the past few months. Didn't have the time to do it because I was focused on Castor, and so happy to do this today, because it's not going to be like an episode, a short format. So I think it will be like 50-minute hour format where I'm going to cover all the topics I mentioned earlier. So if you enjoy this, like I said, if you're on YouTube, comment and give me your feedback, also the question you might have. And if you are on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, go on LinkedIn and give me your feedback, because on Apple Podcasts you can't give any feedback, but on Spotify now you can actually. So feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn and give me your feedback. So super excited about this format. I've got some coffee for this 50 minutes that we're going to 50 minutes, an hour that we're going to spend together. So I hope you enjoy this format. And so first topic I wanted to cover is maybe if you missed this on the newsletter or on LinkedIn, I announced that, but last week on Friday, that was my last day at Castor. So I'm switching jobs right. I'm switching jobs right now. I can't talk. But this week for me it's pretty going to rest. I'm focused on being ready for the next job I'm starting, and I'm starting next Monday, and I'm going to announce that on Monday next week. So that I'm back to leadership. So pretty excited about that. I'm not going to give you more details. I'll let you discover that with my LinkedIn post next week. So super excited about that. The other thing I wanted to cover also about this podcast, the SDR Game in general, the podcast, the newsletter I'm creating. I've shared a couple times a survey. I'm going to add it in the comment section, in the description of the episode, where you can give your feedback. So basically, I've created a survey to thinking about what's going to be next for the SDR Game. So I'm thinking about creating more quality content, but right now what I'm thinking about is paying for it, because obviously that's something that's taking me a lot of more and more time. And by doing this, the goal is obviously give you more content, more quality content, and to help you. I know we have a lot of SDRs, people in different stage in their career. So I know people are just starting the journey. People are just are looking for an SDR role, their first SDR role, or people they just want to perform at their best into their current SDR role, or they want to be promoted to an A role, for example. And we even have enterprise account executive that I know are listening to this. So I know we have a lot of people listening to this. So I'm thinking about creating content / products, whatever you want to call them. But I'm thinking about templates, maybe, or a paid newsletter, a paid community. And because it's by doing that, for me, it's going to give you more quality on this side. So, for example, if let's take the example of the community, and why I'm thinking more and more about the community is, yes, you have a lot of communities. Yes, you have Rev Genius, for example, but it's free. The fact that maybe you need to pay, it's not that it's not going to be not good quality, but if you pay for something, generally you are going to invest more your time on it than if it was free, because generally when it's free, you say, oh, okay, I'm going to join the community, but then you forget about it. But if you pay for something, generally your commitment will be higher. And so that's why. So the goal, for example, if we create a community, it will be having, not sure, I don't have all the details yet, but it could be, we could use Discord, for example, or Circles. That's another platform to manage communities. And the goal will be to have people who want to really improve their prospecting skills. And here will be, obviously, it could be SDRs, but all the people who want to improve their prospecting skills. And in this community, I think the biggest value will be you will be in touch with other high-performing SDRs, where that I think sometimes it's missing, because a few times when I was in my previous roles at Castor or other companies, sometimes I was missing the contact with SDRs from other companies or AEs from other companies, because yes, it's great to be in touch, obviously, with the SDRs or your account executive at your company, but it's good also to be in touch with people who are in the same mindset as you, that in this growing mindset, and this community is to join, to be in touch with those people. And I think that's something, yes, you can do it on LinkedIn, you can post on LinkedIn, but here the goal will be, you can still do that on LinkedIn if you want, but here you have a place where you can find those people, and so you can grow with those reps. Obviously, the goal is, that's one of the first goals. I'm thinking about a lot of different things, but for example, a job board for the community, because same here is, if we have a community of high performers, then we will have also companies who will be interested to, or we can put you in touch with companies, really good companies, for example. So that's some ideas. I'm sure there is a lot of things we could do on this community. And so if you want to give me your feedback, I'm going to include a survey at the bottom of this episode, so in the description of this episode. So we'd love to get your feedback. Also feel free to reach out on LinkedIn to give me your ideas or what you're thinking about. But yeah, so that's something I wanted to share with you, because I'm thinking more and more about this, because the SDR Game is still, for me, a side project for now. But I think in the next few years, I would love to be really full-time on this project. So that's why I'm thinking about this. And I want to do, I think, the mistake that sometimes people are making when they're creating product, it's assuming that they have the best idea and they just want you to create the product and then no one buys it. So I've seen some examples sometimes from entrepreneurs that they're going to create a training on a specific topic, and they never talk to their customers, and no one buys the product, and they wonder that they say, yeah, trainings are not working, so yeah, that's a waste of time. No, it's just you didn't spend time with your customers, and you didn't know what they want. So that's why I'm creating this. I want to be share that with you, because it's, I think, what I want to build next. It's based on your feedback and what you want, and how I can help you solve those problems. So let me know. So yeah, if you have any question, let me know. So the first question that I got it was from Jasper Gilaran, BDR at Prospect. So he asked me about my founding BDR role at Castor, actually. And the question was around what will be my approach with this role, because I think a founding BDR role versus a BDR role will be completely different. And I think obviously depending on the size of the company you're working with, but a founding BDR role, it's a lot of things to figure out. So I think the first thing you need to figure out is, generally when you are a founding BDR role, you don't have a manager, you don't have like a BDR manager or a BDR director, because you will be the first BDR. So you will be working with the co-founders generally, or the founder of the company. So that's the first thing. And here I think if you think about that, it's going to be your relationship with your manager would be completely different, obviously, depending on who you're working with. A founder, I think it's great because you will get a lot of information about the business. You will be have more responsibilities, obviously, because you are the first person to build the team. So the pros on this is, yes, you are going to grow quicker, but I think the cons of this, it's sometimes founders that you are working with, they might not have the experience in sales, or for example, or marketing. And that's something that you need to be not worry about, but it's something you need to know, because every founder will be different. Some founders will have like a background of sales, a background of marketing, or maybe a background of engineer. So that's something you need to know. So sometimes you will have a founder that can be here to be your mentor and help you, obviously, and give you the vision, what they want. So that's something you need to figure out. And when you're a BDR working with a BDR manager, you are more the BDR manager is focused on the success of the team and of your success. So this person will be really focusing on helping you improving your skills. So that's, I think, the first thing to think about. The second thing when you join a company as a founding BDR is generally maybe you are not the first hire. Maybe they hired people in the past, tried the BDR function, didn't work. It's pretty common, and I know a lot of companies try to hire junior BDR or junior SDRs, thinking about that they are going to help the business and be the foundation of the team, with no management and reporting directly to the founder. So I'm not saying I think it's a mistake. And I was going to say it's not a mistake, but I think it's a mistake, because in early stage of a company, with a junior SDR, someone who is just starting as an SDR, yes, this person can be really hungry and have a lot of energy and want to learn the role. But if the founder doesn't have any experience on prospecting, this person is going to take a lot of time to ramp up and get results. And generally, in early stage companies, the founders, they don't have time to wait a year or 2 years to get results. So generally, I've seen a lot of founders doing this, hiring junior SDRs to help with this, and I think that's a mistake, because it's going to take a lot of time for the business, but also for the founder. So generally, when you are looking for funding BDR or funding SDR, you want to have people who already have experience in prospecting. Obviously, the best case scenario is having someone who already prospected the same buyer persona, the same type of companies, and have prospecting experience, maybe led a team in the past, and I think that's obviously the best. I don't think it's possible to do that for every role, but I think it's possible to find someone like this. But if the person didn't prospect the buyer persona, I think it's fine, because when you have like a process to prospect different buyer personas, you can do that to any industry. So that's something you need to figure out. And that's why also I took the role at Castor, because Castor was my fourth job, and my first founding SDR role. And so I forgot to mention, so for me, if SDR BDR is the same, and I know for some people SDR BDR it's different. So some companies SDR is inbound, focused on inbound, and then BDR it's focused on outbound. So if I say SDR or BDR, for me it's the same, but I'm going to just say BDR if you want, because at Castor my role was focusing on outbound with the rest of the team. So, and the approach, I think, with the role was the first thing I need to focus on was understanding the companies we are going after, because the company had already SDRs in the past, so they tried the function already, and so I know that it didn't work, and I was here to help with the building the messaging and other things. So the first step I think you need to figure out is, does the company already have customers? Because if not, I think it will be a different answer for me today. But if you don't have customers yet, I think it's more thinking about who might be the best companies to go after, the buyer personas, and trying to after people and get feedback on your product. Had the chance, I would say, to already have customers at Castor, so it was easier for me because I could go analyze the customers of Castor, and it was easier for me to know where to focus on. Because something I've learned also is sometimes the founders or the leadership team, they might have an idea on the ICP or the companies they want to go after, and when I say ICP, ideal customer profile, and they might have also an idea on the buyer personas they want to go after. I think the thing you need to figure out is getting data on that, having data as a proof to say, okay, we need to go after these companies because 80% of our customers are similar to this industry, or industry, for example. 80% of our customers are SaaS businesses, so we should go after SaaS businesses. And that's not saying just, we want to go after SaaS because that's my gut feeling. No, it's have data proving that. So that's why the first step will be analyzing your customers if you have them already. So when I joined Castor, we have more than 50 customers. So my first step was to analyze this. And the first step when I want to check is obviously the size of the companies, the industry, the location, obviously also, because depending on the country, you might have different customers and a different ACV, for example. So when I say the size of the company, because you might have companies of 500 employees or 1,000 employees, and that's something you want to see. Do you have any correlation with the size of the company and the size of the deal, for example? I say the industry also because, for example, when I was working at Chili Piper, we were selling to different industries, but 95% of the customers were SaaS businesses. So when you're reaching out, if the business is not a SaaS, you know that you don't have a great chance of success to close the deal with this company with not a SaaS business. So that's why, for example, it's important. At Castor, it was different because the product was different. and I forgot to mention, but Castor is a data catalog. I'm not going to explain exactly what it does, but the industry we were going after is a buyer person we are going after were data leaders, so chief data officers, VP of data, data engineer directors, or personas focused on data. And data teams, you have data teams in any industries. I think it's more based on the size of the companies. Generally, you have data teams. In the SaaS industry, you have data teams. They start generally at 100 employees or 200 employees. So could be, for example, a focus for us. But if you check, for example, the retail industry or CPG industry, yes, you have the data team, but generally it's when the company is bigger than 200 employees, generally more like 600, 700 employees. So that's something I found out when I was building the messaging for Castor. So at Castor, I could go after any industry. And at Chili Pepper, I couldn't because the SaaS businesses was the only one, and that what it is. Also, and maybe that's a topic for another day, but if you think about industry, also you have sub-industries, because at Chili Pepper, for example, we found that you have the SaaS industry, but inside the SaaS industry, you have maybe 20 sub-industries. You have companies selling to salespeople, companies selling to cybersecurity buyer personas, for example. And all of those companies, they have different challenges, different maybe not goals, but challenges. And that's something you need to be aware of when you're reaching to those companies, because your messaging needs to be different. Something also I learned is at Chili Pepper, when we're selling a product that help sales team and marketing teams, if you are reaching out to a company selling to SMB companies, the messaging will be different. But if you are selling to a company with an enterprise team, your messaging will be different also, because they have different challenges than an enterprise team has different challenges than an SMB team. So that's something you need to be aware of, because that's something you can leverage in your messaging later on. So I was talking about the industries for Castor, and yeah, so basically I could go after any industries. But when I was doing my research, even though you can go after every industries, yes, you have companies with data teams. What I found out is you have companies who are more, I would say, modern than others, that invest in tools for their data teams. And something I've learned is that, for example, we were working with Snowflake, Databricks, Redshift, or BigQuery. For example, they have data warehouse tools. And if you know that a company has a data team, but they don't have one of those tools, it's not going to be a good fit for us, because one, we only integrate with modern data warehouse tools. And two is, if a company doesn't invest in their data tools, it means that they are not going to invest in Castor, for example. So that's something I learned about. Even though you can sell to any industries, you can remove a lot of companies just based on the stack of their tools, because of what I just mentioned. So that's the first step you need to think about, is the targeting. The companies you are going after is, what are the demographic triggers, demographic criteria that I can use, but also technographic criteria that I can use. And like I mentioned, demographic is the location of the company, the size of the company, the industry of the company. I don't have the rest of the top of mind, but that's something you can figure out. To start, obviously there is more, revenue, for example, but specifically, for example, for Castor, it was the most relevant. It was more the size of the company or the size of the data team, same as Chili Pepper. It was the size of the sales team, for example, because Castor and Chili Pepper, they are both products focused on licenses. So the more users they have inside the company. So obviously it means that the higher will be the opportunity. So that's I would say the first step is the companies you want to go after. You need to have like a clear definition on those companies. And I think, for example, something I learned as a podcaster is you can have one definition for one industry, but the definition could be different into another industry. So example, like I mentioned, SaaS businesses and I would say maybe more traditional company, let's say retail, for example, the retail industry. The SaaS industry for data, a 300 company can have a team of 30 data people, a team of 30 people. And sometimes you have retail company with 1,000 employees and there are 15 data people on the team. And so, yes, the retail account I would say the retail account, let's say it's an e-commerce store, for example, they have 1,000 employees. They only have 15 employees. But in the idea, yes, they have 1,000 employees, but the team is smaller than the SaaS business with 300 employees. So one company is maybe smaller than the other one, but your opportunity might be higher in the smaller company because of the size of the team. So that's something you need to figure out because each industry is different. Obviously, the SaaS industry will be always, I'm not saying it's the best one, but it's generally, if you're thinking about companies who are really early adopters on technologies, for example, because here on this podcast, we talk about SaaS businesses and we are talking about new technologies that companies might use. So I think that's step number one is focusing on this. Then the second step is the buyer personas. And what I mean by buyer personas is the people who are taking the meetings, they are buying your product. Something you need to figure out is what are the titles of those personas? Do you have like new titles? And when I say that, I'm going to explain why. What's the challenges of those buyer personas? Their day-to-day, what's the content they are consuming to improve on their role, because you want to understand their day-to-day, because you want to have an idea when you are going to create your messaging for those prospects, the specific problems they have and your program can solve, for example. But let's go back on what I was talking about, the titles, for example. So something I learned at Chili Pepper, if a company had SDRs, it was a really great fit for us. And so that's one. If a company didn't have SDRs, you need to do more research and see to understand some of the business. But a company with SDRs were really a great fit, for example, for Chili Pepper. At Castor, I'm not going to explain all the personas, but there is a lot of different buyer personas I could go after, but C-level executive, the VP of data, chief data officers, data engineers, BI leaders, so business intelligence, data governance, and a new one that was created thanks to a tool, DBT. For those who are in the industry, you know it. But the last one is analytics engineers. And I think it's pretty similar to SDRs in the SaaS industry for sales people. The analytics engineer person or team, if you know a company use this, they are a company who are investing a lot in the data processes, or they're really focusing on data, and they're pretty modern on this. So that's something that was using a lot to find if a company was a great fit. And also that was one of my main focus when I was reaching out to a company. And I mentioned, so to go back on the rest, so challenges is, I think for me, that's something I've learned in the past 2-3 years at Chili Pepper here at Castor, is your prospecting efforts will have more impact if you focus on the problems you can solve. the challenges that you can solve, instead of trying to pitch the features of the product. So something learning about each buyer persona is you want to see, obviously understand their challenges, and then the challenges that your product can solve. So, and how you can find those is, I think it's a lot of research. If you use a tool like Gong or Chorus, for example, that's something you can use and re-listen to a lot of demos, or and you want to listen to why they took the meeting or what about the product to solve their problems. Another thing you can use also is G2. On G2, if your company use it, that's great. You can go on your page reviews. Under each review, there is a section talking about what was, why did you buy the product and to solve which problem or something like that. And if you have, for example, because if you have recordings, for example, that's harder to find information, but here you could use these reviews and you can use that for each persona. And I think it's great because you can use specifically the words that they are using to use that later in your outreach. Because right now we didn't talk about the outreach yet. We are just talking about the foundation of this role, because generally that's the first part of the founding BDR role. So, and I know it's taking a lot of time to explain that, but I think it's key for the success of your role, but for any outbound motion or SDR teams in general, if you don't have those pillars or the companies you are going after and why and the criteria, that's one. And then the buyer personas and the criteria mentioned, the challenges you can solve, the title of this person, the content they're consuming, because that's something you can also use differently. But because for me, when you create your buyer persona, it's not, hey, we are going to talk to Sally, the VP of data. She's 45 years old, for example, and she plays golf or whatever on the weekend. So I think that's another way to think about your buyer personas. It's more about what are the common challenges for your prospects or your customers, and how you can help them solve that. If you want to go deeper on the buyer personas, I think it's getting harder if you think about buyer persona by industry. But if you can go to this level, I think it's way more relevant also for your prospects. And I think step one is figure out your ICP, industry, stuff like that. Then the buyer personas, whatever the industry. But I think the next step will be go deep on buyer personas by industry, because a chief data officer, for example, at a SaaS company, will have different challenges than a chief data officer at a retail company, because the business is different and they will use the data in different ways. And that's something you need to figure out, because here I'm talking about my example at Castor, but I think it's the same example for each company. The challenges are different, and for each industry. And then at the end, you have the messaging. Then based on that, then you can leverage into your outreach. So I think the messaging, when you already know the challenges of the industry, of the challenges of the industry or the challenges of your buyer personas, it's way easier to figure out creating your messaging. And then you can start thinking how you can use that in your cold emails, how you can use that in your LinkedIn messages or in cold calls. Because yes, I can give you tips on prospecting, but if you don't have this understanding of your prospects and customers, it's going to be hard to be really efficient also in your outreach. So that's, I think, as a founding BDR, the main function is to create this. It's a lot of work because you need to do the research and then at some time prospecting. And when you start prospecting, also something you start realizing is some research that you found that maybe it's not relevant to all of them. So the biggest challenge I think as a founding BDR is building this, what I just mentioned, building the foundation of the messaging of the company, but also figure out what's working with your prospect, because it's when you have ideas, it's great, but then you need to test them, and then sometimes it doesn't work. So, and that's something I learned. I had so many ideas for Castor, and we're trying them and didn't work, and that's the way it is. And I think it's having this mindset of every week testing maybe a new persona, or maybe a different messaging that we want to test, focusing on different challenge. So yeah. So hope that was helpful, Jasper, to answer your question. And then I think building the team comes later, because when the SDR team doesn't have any results, normally if at the founding team, for the founders, we won't hire any SDRs, so they want to have like early results to say, hey, we are going to hire people. So the first few months should be focusing on creating the messaging and figure out what's working. Maybe also the best channel. I'm going to talk about that later, but for example, we found that LinkedIn was a really good channel for their leaders and their engineers. That you might think that it's not the case, but I'm going to explain that a little bit later. But yeah, thinking about building the team, generally it comes maybe after 6 months or maybe a year to hire another person. And here, then you can thinking about the onboarding process, but also documenting everything. Something also I learned and I'm trying to be better at is documenting everything, because as when you're building a team, you want to have some words of thinking that things that people can use when you are going to hire them, and whatever you're using. But for me, I'm using Notion to document that, and that's something you need to figure out is how you are going to document everything. So when someone who's going to start, it can use to ramp up quicker. So if you have more questions about this topic, let me know. The second thing is what I wanted to cover is what I'm reading right now is for next week for my new role. I just bought this book. So if you're on Spotify, Apple Podcast, it's the book Busting Silos. It's by Hilary Carpio and Travis Henry. They are both working at Snowflake, and basically the book is talking about how to align sales and marketing. Today, Snowflake is 7,000 employees or more than that, so they're growing really fast year over year. And something I found out also in my roles and the changes had a lot is the misalignment between the sales team and marketing team. And I know it's sounds cliche, but it's the truth. Generally, you don't have like a lot of alignment, a lot of meetings to work together, or how to work together. And the book is pretty good. I've read like 40 pages so far, and I'm pretty excited about it because it's giving me a lot of ideas for my new role. So yeah, if you're thinking in leadership or thinking about going to leadership, that's something that's a really good book, I think. And I'm going to share my takeaways when I will finish the book. So, and we're curious also to see what you are currently reading, or what do you think helping you right now with books. So yeah. Third topic I want to cover is the best resources to start as an SDR. I don't remember who exactly, but I had a question a few weeks ago saying what resources are best for a new SDRs. And the change is, and why you was asking that is because today you have a lot of free content, a lot of people to follow on LinkedIn, a lot of books, and it can be tough to say, okay, what's good, what's not good, and do the research. So I sat down after getting this question, thinking about, hey, what are the best book, podcasts, or things that you can use as a junior SDR. So here's the list. So I started with books. So I mentioned 4. No, I forgot one actually. But I said 3 podcasts. I'm going to research. Oh yeah, I have it. So okay, so I have 4 books, 2 podcasts, 1 newsletter, and 3 website blogs, and one last thing. So the 4 books that help me with prospecting, it's the first one is Fanatical Prospecting by Jim Blunt. That's the first book I've read about prospecting, actually. I think it's a great book to focus on mindset, not about the messaging or prospecting, I would say, how you can cold call or stuff like that, because I think it's pretty outdated on this side. But the mindset of this book, thinking about the different laws, this book is really amazing. So if you don't read it. The second book is The SaaS Sales Method for SDRs by Jaco van der Kooj and Dan Smith. So they are the team behind Winning by Design. And I think it's this one, for example, for prospecting tactics is really good because it talks a lot about different things, playbooks, the top-down approach, the bottom-up approach, the messaging you can use. And I think this book is great for SDRs in general or prospecting in general. So buy it if you want. If you want, I think this book is great. Then another one that just read recently is Outbounding by William Skip Miller. This book is same as the book from Jaco. It's pretty good. My favorite chapter of this one is the above the power line and below the power line. So that's something maybe you will find more in the enterprise prospecting, but it's how you're thinking about your approach with reaching out to C-level executive and with manager, director, who are more focused on the day-to-day of the company. So this chapter is great because it's really good to explain you that and how you can use that in your messaging. Then there is Spear Selling. That's the last book. So Spear Selling by Jamie Shanks. So it's a book about account-based prospecting. So it's more focused on how you can go after an account instead of your buyer personas. And that's also a really good book that I've read before moving to Mexico. And this book, what I really like about it is thinking about not just, hey, how you can go cold after an account. So reaching out, you don't know anyone on the account and you want to go after this account. So it's, instead of doing that, is who are familiar. If I have a 200 list of accounts, say who are familiar with me or my company, and how you can leverage, referrals, for example. And I think it gives you a lot of different ways of thinking about prospecting instead of, prospecting is just cold outbound, and you have your 200 accounts and you go one by one. No, it's how you can prioritize your outreach. So another great book. The 2 podcasts I swear by. So the first one is 30 Minutes to President Clubs. So this one is my favorite. I think it's the most tactical podcast you can find about sales in general. I think you have a lot of episodes for AEs, but you have really great episodes on prospecting. So definitely, if you don't know it, go listen to it. You have really great episode on prospecting also. The other one is this one, obviously, and it's not, obviously I'm biased about this, but I'm getting a lot of great feedback recently about the podcast because the podcast is growing really fast right now if I'm comparing to my previous podcast or content I was creating. But the feedback I'm getting that people are saying that's the podcast for SDRs. And I think and that was my goal, is to create the podcast that I didn't have when I started my SDR journey. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. And if you enjoy it, let me know on YouTube or on LinkedIn. Or if you are on Spotify, you can leave you can rate the show, and same on Apple Podcast, you can leave a review if you want. So then let's talk about the newsletter. My favorite newsletter. So that's the one from Florin Taturia. I love this newsletter. Every time I'm reading his newsletter, I'm learning something. So I think if I'm learning something, you will definitely learn something. So feel free to check his newsletter. So his newsletter is Prospecting from the Trenches. And then there is three websites, blogs that I enjoy a lot reading. The first one, Flip the Script by Beck Holland. Beck Holland, she was the head of SDRs at Chorus, and she was leading an SDR team also at G2 and Gong. And she created a website since she moved full-time to her business. But, excuse me. So she has a website talking about prospecting, and she has a really good process about prospecting, a lot of great tips to talk about cold calling, cold emailing, how you can personalize your Twitch. So I'm really enjoying our website. Then you have another website that for me it's a goldmine. So I mentioned the book of Jacko earlier. So it's the website of Winning by Design. Their blog is great because they're more focusing on having a scientist approach of sales, and they have content around prospecting. And so same here, if you want to thinking about or learning more about prospecting or sales in general, their blog is great. And then the last website that I'm really enjoying recently, and that's a new one that I've added this year actually, it's the blog of Lavender. So recently I had Mike Wander, actually, their first AE, on the show to talk about cold emailing. And the blog talks about cold emailing. And it's pretty actionable. I love it because it's really focusing on actionable tips and really valuable content. So if you want to improve on cold emailing, feel free to check that blog, because I think it's a really good blog. And this episode is not sponsored by anything I'm mentioning here. It's just me sharing what I love or really find useful. So everything for example, the blog of Lavender, they are not paying me to talk about this, and I'm really in love with the blog. So, and I'm always checking their blog. There is one article that I've really enjoyed. I don't remember exactly the name, but I think it's 13 frameworks you can use in your cold emails or something like that. So this, I'm going to check right now. Yes, 13 proven sales email frameworks for unignorable emails. And this article is pretty good if you want to improve. And the last thing, to learn prospecting, it's to consume the content of your prospects. And it's go back to what I was mentioning earlier about the tip for Jasper about being a founding BDR. You want to be the person who understands the most your prospect, even though you are an SDR, because that's something you can use when you will be an AE, when you will you create your company or stuff like that. So having this mindset of, I want to know better my prospects than my products, it's the mindset you need to have. Because, and actually I didn't mention that, but for me, I don't focus on my product. Generally, it's the only thing I'm doing with my product is I want to understand the features, but the pains that each feature is going to solve, and then how we can help, each features can help my better personas based on that, based on the pain we can solve, and not, hey, my product it does this and that's it. So the best thing you can do on top of learning reading or listening to everything I've mentioned earlier is be obsessed by your customers. Be the one that know the best your customers because you want to know their changes, the day-to-day. And the best thing you can do about improving your prospecting skill is to be really obsessed by your customers, because that's something you can leverage. So listen to GongScore, go to G2 to read the reviews, to understand the word they're using, because that's something you can use also in your outreach. The other thing you can do is find the content they're listening to or reading, and not just the content produced by your company. What are the LinkedIn influencers they're following, or the blogs or the community they're part of, because the more you are focused on the content they're consuming, and the more you will understand them. So that's, I think, can also help you really well in improving your prospecting outreach. And I think the last thing I want to talk about today, it's the LinkedIn approach. So earlier I was mentioning that at Castor I found that LinkedIn was one of the main channels that we are using to book meetings. So this is based on a comment from Florin, actually, that I mentioned earlier. So he wrote a post about prospecting on LinkedIn, and he wrote, I'm going to just quote what he said. So, understand that not all persons use LinkedIn the same. From experience, certain personnel like engineering, finance, and security folks do not leverage LinkedIn as frequently as sales marketing people. Maybe not worth investing a ton of time into it. So that's something I learned, like I mentioned at Castor, is yes, I think it's true. It's true. They're not using those buyer personas actually are not using LinkedIn the same way as sales or marketing personas. The marketing is, and I would say maybe sales personas are using more LinkedIn than the rest of buyer personas, because that's their role to go after their prospect who might be on LinkedIn. So that's why salespeople are more responding to messages than other buyer personas. But what I found at Casa is their engineers, data leaders, they also use LinkedIn, not the same way, but they reply to messages. So what I found out is you have, I think, two types of people on LinkedIn. You have, and that can be the same for every buyer personas. The first one is people who are active on LinkedIn. So here, yes, you can spend time creating a relationship with them. They are posting, so it's easier to ask questions about that. You can be focused on creating a relationship that maybe with others you can't. And with data leaders, you still have the same, because you have people who are really active on LinkedIn, and that's something you can do. But what I found out is the most of them are not active on LinkedIn. And here what you can do with them, even that they accept your connection request, they are not posting on LinkedIn, they're not commenting, or they're not liking anything on LinkedIn. So yes, they are not active, but you can still book meetings with them. The way that I found useful is that you need to be straight to the point. And I'm not saying you need to send a message of 15 lines to your prospects, because here, obviously, they're not going to read it, and they are not going to respond to you. So LinkedIn is a social app or a social network. So people, they are receiving a lot of messages, so you need to be straight to the point. So you can pitch your prospects on LinkedIn for those who are not active, because, and I'm going to give an example. It's I booked a meeting with a company at Castor. In June, the prospect, yes, I'm interested. And then he ghosted me, and I booked the meeting in early July, 1 month later. And what I understood with that is they are not spending time on LinkedIn. So if you want to try to build a relationship, well, you're going to waste your time with those prospects. So that's why you need to be straight to the point with them. So, and I don't have the example here, but I think that's something, because a lot of people are asking me for examples how you can pitch actually, but you can pitch to those people. I think there is two ways, obviously. If you can personalize your outreach, that's the personalize. Be relevant in your Twitch. That's the best way, obviously, as always. And I think your message need to be at least, you can, the shorter is, the better is. But generally, the messages I was sending at Castor was between 3 to 4 lines to up to 8 lines. Eight lines, generally, it's when I have some information that I'm leveraging, for example, a 10K report or an interview on a podcast episode. So, because I tried the same approach with said leader in marketing leaders was creating a relationship, asking questions about their processes, sending content. I think sending content still works with them, because if you have like a webinar, you want to invite them, or have like a really good piece of content that you want to send them, it still works, and say why it's relevant for them. But if you are pitching, with people who are not active, you don't want to spend too much time on trying to ask questions, because I tried it. I tried with individual contributors, but I tried with leadership and didn't work. Maybe didn't try enough to see if it's working, but the early results on this, on maybe 100, 200 prospects, it showed me that you have more results by pitching and being relevant to what they do, instead of trying to ask questions or build relationships. So would love to get your feedback on this, because that's something obviously you won't see a lot on LinkedIn, because people they say, yeah, on LinkedIn you need to stop slaps. Well, I don't remember the name exactly, but generally people say, yeah, you on LinkedIn don't speech. I think it depends. Like always in sales, in marketing, everything depends. And if people don't pay time on LinkedIn, yes, you can pitch, or you can ask a question about being who's the best person to talk with, for example, because people are not spending time on LinkedIn. And if you want to build a relationship, it's not going to work. So, and why also I know that it's not just me with the results I've seen in the past few months prospecting data leaders. It's also I have episodes on the show, something that I found out talking to other SDRs who are using a lot LinkedIn. And on the show, I want to be really mindful about the SDR I have, meaning that I don't have only SDR selling to salespeople. I have SDR selling to CFOs, engineers, or a lot of different titles, not just VP of sales, because of that. Because people selling to salespeople, they think that's the only way to sell, and you have different ways, obviously, to sell to the rest. So if you have questions about this or feedback about this, let me know. So for today, I think that's it. We are at the mark an hour. So thanks for listening. I know it's a bit a different kind of episode. So it's me with my Mac, my coffee, and my webcam today, and to give you a different type of episode, or it's more me with maybe less structure on the episode, me and my thoughts. So we'd love to get your feedback and see what do you think could be better on the show, on this episode actually, or this new format. So if you are still listening, thank you. I really appreciate that. So if you think this episode was useful, feel free to leave a review on Apple Podcasts and rate the show on Spotify. And if you're on YouTube and still watching, same. You can leave a comment and say what's your biggest takeaway from this episode. And thanks for listening, and I see you on the next one. Bye.